So good morning, everyone. My name is Tori Cooper, and I'm the director of the community. I am the director of community engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative at the Human Rights Campaign. It is my big honor, my huge honor, to introduce to you all, to welcome you all to our first national Justice and Advocacy Summit for the transgender non-binary community and our allies, which is everyone, including you. We're going to talk today, first start off by talking with our president, Alfonso David, and then talk with about 40 different advocates over today and tomorrow between the hours of 1 and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time about different things that are going on about active advocacy in all different places across the country, from Kansas to Kentucky, from Mississippi to Manhattan. We've got a lot of wonderful topics for you. We're also going to start off with Alfonso David, who is our president, who started in 2019, really with the mission of empowering trans folks and making sure that HRC, that we were paying attention to trans folks and addressing through a lens of equity, addressing our needs. So I'd like to introduce to you, I'll give a little bit of his bio, but he is a man that I'm sure all of you are familiar with now. So Alfonso B. David is an accomplished and nationally recognized LGBTQ civil rights lawyer and advocate, and currently the president of the Human Rights Campaign. Mr. David is the first civil rights lawyer and the first person of color to serve as president of HRC in the organization's 40-year history. Mr. David has significant litigation and management experience in the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors. He has been at the forefront of the movement for LGBTQ equality for more than a decade and worked at both the state and national levels. In 2015, Mr. David was appointed by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to serve as counsel to the governor. In this role, he has functioned as the governor's chief counsel and principal legal advisor and managed all significant legal and policy deliberations affecting New York State, including evaluating proposed legislation, implementing laws and policies, and formulating the state's posture on both affirmative and defensive litigation. Prior to working in the public sector, Mr. David served as staff attorney at the Lambda Legal Defense Fund and at Lambda Legal Defense and Educational Fund. At Lambda Legal, Mr. David litigated precedent-setting civil rights cases across the nation, affecting lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals, as well as those living with HIV and AIDS. For the past decade, Mr. David has served as an adjunct professor of law. He began his work in academia with Fordham University Law School and continued at Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law, and he is a graduate of the University of Maryland and Temple University School of Law. And most importantly, he is just an amazing human being, a beautiful Black man, and someone that I am proud to call my boss. Alfonso, please take a few moments to tell us about yourself, tell us about the work that we're doing at HRC.
Tori Cooper, thank you. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for that amazing introduction. And I think you sort of outlined what I've done in my life and what I hope to do as we move forward. And ultimately, the goal is to achieve liberation and equality for people. We know in this country that people of color, LGBTQ people, have unfortunately lived in an environment that has been incredibly oppressive for more than 400 years. And one of the goals that I had for my tenure at the organization is to break down the barriers that have existed so that we can actually create a path and get to the place that we call equality. So, thank you all for joining the summit. Thank you for supporting the work that we do. Before we begin the summit, I want to just first acknowledge how difficult and taxing the past few weeks have been. We have witnessed increased assaults against our communities, violence, targeting people based on their race, and a rash of hateful legislative bills that seek to deny that we actually exist. In Atlanta, Georgia, all of us know by now that 6 Asian women were murdered in a racially motivated killing spree, a spree that I believe was fueled by racism and xenophobia exacerbated over the past year by Donald Trump and his rhetoric. At the same time, we are combating an increase in vile discriminatory bills against transgender and non-binary people. This year alone, we have the highest number of anti-transgender bills in history. Like the bathroom bills before them and the bills targeting marriage equality before them. These bills are nothing more than a coordinated effort by anti-LGBTQ extremists to spread fear and misinformation about us, about transgender people, in order to score political cheap points. These bills are not only spurious, but they're dangerous to transgender people across this nation. These bills seek to deny the very existence of transgender people. They also further perpetuate the stigma that fuels an epidemic of violence against our community, which is particularly targeting Black and brown transgender women. In the first few months of 2021, we've already lost at least 12 lives to anti-trans violence, fresh on the heels of the most violent year we've ever recorded. The people we have lost are not statistics. They're not statistics. Their lives cannot be reduced to numbers. We cannot and we should not forget those who we lost. And we cannot forget the painful truth. Although we voted out hate from the White House, we've only just begun to remove it from the fabric of our democracy. The forces of hate and the forces of discrimination, of racism, of white supremacy, of transphobia, of misogyny, of biphobia, of homophobia, those things haven't gone away. And neither have the politicians who peddle them for their own despicable ends. There are those who will continue to tell us it's us versus them. It's our success, that our safety takes something away from them. And that justice only matters if it is those who look or love or believe like us. It's a shameful truth in this democracy. And it's also a shameful truth of our movement. For a very long time, the LGBTQ movement has not done enough to protect, empower, and listen to the trans and non-binary community, and particularly those who are Black and brown. So a few weeks after I joined the Human Rights Campaign, and way before COVID-19 shut down much of the country, I had the privilege of embarking on a listening tour to hear directly from community leaders, trans leaders of color who told me about the violence, harassment, discrimination, and really utter indifference that they face in their daily lives. They told me how they've been treated as disposable by those who were supposed to be protecting their own interests. These advocates had made clear to me and others who were traveling with me that our movement and our nation had failed them. And this reality, which is so heartbreaking, is compounded by the fact that our own movement would not exist without transgender and gender nonconforming people of color. Sylvia Rivera, Marsha P. Johnson, Major Griffin Gracie, and the list goes on. Those who refused to bow before police brutality and oppression at Stonewall and really changed our nation forever in the process. Their legacy lives on in the warriors for justice, the folks who are on this call, the Tori Coopers of the world. And your truth and the truth of our forefathers, foremothers, siblings carries us forward now. We do not live single issue lives. To achieve liberation, we must defeat hate in all of its forms. And we must refuse to carry forward the systems of oppression that have been built to sustain the power structures around them. So what that means is that we have to center anti-racism in the defeat of white supremacy within the core pillars of what we're doing. That means recognizing gender justice and economic justice. That means transforming the systems so that they truly serve all of us, not just simply some of us. And to do so, part of our efforts have to include advancing legislation to address the intersectional needs of our communities. That is why we're working in a campaign right now called Freedom and Opportunity for All. And that campaign includes top leaders in civil rights, in the faith community, in education, healthcare, and advocacy. We plan to work in coalition to end discrimination, violence, and injustice that LGBTQ people face with every single day, and ensure that we have federal protections and fight back against anti-LGBTQ legislation in the states. And we know that public opinion is on our side. We know that all we have to do is work in collaboration together. And since I've joined the Human Rights Campaign just a year and a half ago, the Trans Justice Initiative, which we launched, has grown to encompass many programs at HRC and inform our work across the entire organization and our collaborations across coalition partners. Just today, I should say, we are announcing that we're partnering with Lyft to provide free transportation to transgender and non-binary individuals in need. On a quarterly cycle in 2021, the Human Rights Campaign and Lyft will provide $15,000 in ride credits each quarter to a group of community-based organizations that support transgender and non-binary people, with special consideration given to groups that serve transgender communities of color. In this past November, we announced the launch of a new small grants program that would award $30,000 nationally to community members advancing trans justice, rooted in partnership with outside organizations. We're also proud to partner with Destination Tomorrow in offering one-time COVID-19 rapid response grants to trans and non-binary community members in need. In this past fall, I had the privilege and the pleasure of joining Minneapolis City Council Vice President and HRC board member Andrea Jenkins in launching a pledge to end violence against Black and transgender women. And we also have our Activate and Elevate Fellowship that Tori oversees. The goal there is leadership development for transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming BIPOC leaders. Those who oppose our progress will try to deny our humanity, but they are on the losing side. They're on the losing side of history because our community is not going away. Instead, we are tearing away the barriers of the past. Just look at last Wednesday. Rachel Levine became the first openly transgender official ever confirmed by the US Senate. Every single day, new barriers are being broken. Transgender and non-binary people are blazing new trails, are innovating and creating and thriving. And the challenges our community faces continue to be grave. But as the Trans Day of Visibility reminds us, it is not the challenges that define us. It's our joy, it's our hope, it's our strength, our grit, and our determination. And it is those qualities that sustain us in our shared journey towards liberation. I'm not trying to get to equality. I'm trying to get to liberation, where I can walk in a room as a Black man, as a gay man, as an immigrant, and not feel the vestiges of discrimination. And that's all we should be asking for. It's our community that carries us forward. I want to thank you all for coming on this journey with me, with the Human Rights Campaign, with Tori, with all of the coalition partners that we're working with to bring justice and equality to life. That's our goal. And I believe with your help, working in coalition, we can achieve that. Thank you again for joining this summit. And I'll turn it back over to Tori Cooper.
Cheers to you, Alfonso. I feel like I've just had church, and this is so important. Alfonso talks about the commitment we have to making sure that we're moving in the right direction. And certainly that extends not just for the Trans Justice Initiative, but across all of our programming. Just honored to be a part of the change. So with that being said, in the interest of time, we all are going to move forward and we're going to introduce our panelists. We're going to talk for about the next 35 minutes about the work that they're doing. One of the really important things about the Trans Justice Initiative this year is we had 6 priority cities, and those 6 cities were Atlanta. All right, so our 6 cities were Cleveland, Kansas City, Dallas, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and we added New Orleans on. And so all of our panelists represent those different 6 cities, and we want to welcome each and every one of them to the panel and have opportunities to talk about the work that they're doing in their respective communities, and also some of the work that different advocates are doing and where we go from here. So I would like to first introduce to you all Ms. Naima Sanchez, who hails from the greater Philadelphia area. Naima is an amazing woman. She's going to take a minute or two to tell you a little about what she does. But first, welcome, Naima. Wonderful. Don't worry, I'm going to shut up very soon. I want to bring all of our panelists on and then really allow you all to take the floor, because folks aren't here to see me. They're here to hear about you. So next, I would like to introduce to you all Saria Jackson, who is an amazing young woman who's in New Orleans and about to tear things up. Welcome, beautiful. So happy to have you.
Hi, thank you.
Next, welcome to our panel, if you will. I want to introduce someone who, again, I've had the pleasure to work with before and looking forward to many, many more opportunities, and that's Miss Korea Kelly, who hails from Kansas City, Missouri. Welcome, Korea. I would like to introduce to you all Giovanni Santiago. Giovanni, we haven't had many interactions so far, but I can tell that we're going to know each other and get to know each other a lot, and you all are going to hear about great work that Giovanni and other activists are doing. So welcome, Giovanni. I'd also like to welcome you all, introduce to some, reintroduce to others, Ms. Naomi Green, who is in the greater Dallas area, Dallas, Texas. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce to you all Alex Santiago, who is an amazing advocate and lives in the greater Atlanta area. And one of the things I'd like to mention about Alex that I think is so very, very important today, literally while we're on this. So Alex, I kind of shared it with them last night, but we do a Trans Justice newsletter. It's TJI newsletter, and you can find it on HRC's website or just Google it. And on our TJI newsletter, Alex Santiago and his I Am Human Foundation were awarded our Advocate of the Month for the amazing work that they all are doing. So cheers for that.
Thank you.
So I would like each of our panelists, in the order that I called you, if you all would take about 2 to 3 minutes to talk a bit about your work, 1 to 2 minutes to talk about yourself and your work, and then we're going to talk more about what's going on in your community. So first, let's talk about you as an advocate, in the order that I introduced you. Well, Naima, I think we dropped Naima. So, oh, there she is. Okay. Come on, Naima, with it.
Hi, everyone. So sorry, I'm having some internet issues around here. So Naima Sanchez, she, her pronouns. I am the current Trans Justice Coordinator at the ACLU of Pennsylvania. I'm working on some decrim stuff in Philadelphia County, but across statewide, we're looking at correcting or just creating a more of a favorable state for moving the needle in the right direction for trans rights in PA. So I don't know where we're at, so I'm just going to be quiet now. So go ahead.
I think it's my turn. Hi, everyone. I'm Saria Jackson, and me personally, I'm just a little country girl who wanted to make a difference in the world. That's just who I am. I believe in God, and that is the center of my joy. The work that I do is servitude. I am a community servant, and I believe in being able to serve my community to the best of my abilities. I've made sure that I've reached out and obtained a lot of skills, and I'm still a sponge to learning. I know that knowledge is power, and in order to utilize that power, I must be knowledgeable about a variety of different things. So I'm launching a very new program, in which I'm very excited to launch. Team Nola, Trans Equity Affirming Movement, New Orleans. It's not just about New Orleans, it's about our full state, but I focus on New Orleans because I'm based here. And this is my home, and ain't nothing better than working from home and cleaning out your own front porch before you try to sweep off someone else's. So thank you guys so much for having me here, for allowing me with this platform. Hopefully I will be an asset and not a hindrance.
All right, I think I'm up next. I'm Korea Kelly. I'm based out of Kansas City, Missouri. I work for the Kansas City Care Clinic here. I'm the lead prevention specialist and lead outreach tester. I also am the founder and CEO of Trans Empowerment Society, which is a branch of Operation Liberation. We're a Black bailout fund here in Kansas City to help bail out those less marginalized. Since 2008, we've been having, my sisters died 2 at a time each year since 2008. And so it's led me to step up. I've been an advocate in my community since 15, but really since my sisters have been perishing through crime and things like that, and there's the resources that are limited here for us, I've stepped up in that field and trying to prevent that here in the Kansas City area.
I believe I'm next. Giovanni Santiago, he, him, his pronouns. I am the founder and CEO of Meta Center, Inc., which stands for Motivate, Educate, Transform, and Advocate. It is a nonprofit that I started that is geared towards assisting transgender and gender nonconforming youth and young adults in the Northeast Ohio area. I am also an honorably disabled veteran, and I was responsible for assisting the Lewis Stokes Wade Park VA clinic in Cleveland and opening the very first transgender specific clinic in the entire VA system in 2015. I'm also the Northeast Ohio regional organizer with Equality Ohio, where we work on advocacy and education and legislation in the state of Ohio, because there's still 0 statewide protections in the entire state. I'm also the new LGBTQ youth sports director for the new LGBT hub that's going up in Cleveland, because I feel like it's so important to uplift our youth. There's so many organizations out there that support adults that are LGBTQ, but not a lot that are doing enough for the youth. And so I've really dedicated my passions to working with youth and veterans and uplifting Black and brown trans people. Obviously, we understand the entire community needs love, but I have to take care of my own first. And if we don't love us, who's gonna love us? And if I don't love me, who's gonna love me? And that's how I have to live every single day. And so we adapt and overcome, and we thrive for greatness. And so that's what I aspire to do always. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
All right, so Alex, are we back on? Can you hear me, Alex? Okay, so once we get Alex, we'll allow him to talk a bit more about his work and all those other things. So Alex, interrupt when you can. Okay, so all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to keep going because our time goes by so quickly. But I wanted to ask, make a couple of questions for maybe let's have Naomi and Ms. Correa respond to this question, or really not about a question, but both of you, you're both in cities where there has been nationally publicized deaths of trans individuals. Trans women have been killed there over the last few years. As Ms. Correa said, 2 a year in Kansas City. And in Dallas, unfortunately, it's even higher than that. So can you all talk a little bit about what folks, take about a minute each to talk about what folks are doing on the ground.
Hey, Naomi. We can't hear you.
I think she's muted.
Naomi, you're muted.
Did I miss something? My connection seems to be going really goofy today.
Unfortunately, no one can hear Naomi.
We can't hear you, Miss Naomi. Still can't hear you. So we'll come back again. So we have Alex and Naomi in the queue. We might not ever use Ustream again. Let me make that abundantly clear. So this next one is going for Giovanni and Naima. Giovanni and Naima, we want you two to talk a bit more about, I just heard a voice. Was that Naomi's voice? Okay, we're going to go to Giovanni and also to Naima. Talk a little bit about what folks are doing in your respective communities, really to empower trans people, not just in 2021. You know, we're coming out of a hell of a year with COVID in 2020. What are folks doing this year that's helping to add some stability back into the community? And what are some future projects that we should know about in your respective areas? Giovanni?
Yes, so I know we've been talking a lot about the racial uprising and what that looks like for the LGBTQ plus community, especially here in Cleveland. And that's something that we're still having conversations about. And I think the way that I'm looking at it is the conversations are becoming more productive. I think people are actually taking the time to hear each other. And that comes out of a time of just talking and talking over people. You know, I remember a time where I was still having to explain why there was Black Pride. And that was just in 2019. And so really having people kind of understand what that looks like now and why, I feel that we're coming out into a better spot. Some of the things that I know I personally been working on is kind of taking the reins up of bringing the collective trans orgs together and really getting people to understand that collaboration is key. And we have to let go of some of that hurt, whether it was by, you know, other trans organizations or just, you know, overall organizations that we've collaborated with. Whatever has happened in the past, we can't live there. You know, we talk about it, we move through it, and then we have to build from that. And so seeing that that was not totally happening and that no one was really taking leadership in that, I decided to take some leadership with that alongside of a few other individuals at like Trans Ohio, and really just having these active conversations about what does it look like to move through the hurt, collaborate effectively without all of the toxicity that happens, and build something that we can leave a legacy with. And if I feel like I'm putting my name and my energy on the line, then that is how I have to look at the movement. And so that's what we're trying to do in Cleveland right now.
Hi, can folks hear me? Awesome. Thanks, Giovanni, for that. And I actually want to, you know, share, you know, some things that you raised up about what's going on in Ohio around like community unity and understanding and listening. You know, it's one point to hear me, but to understand me and really listen to the issues that affect me, right, that impact me. And I think that speaking for Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, what our community is coming into this aha moment of is how do we ask for trans justice across the state when we are seeing trans injustice in community, right? So we're trying to figure out a perfect way to work with each other to really address the larger issue of injustices that we experience as community members, right? And I think that you know, I really believe that COVID was you know, I really hate what it did to us, but it also gave us a minute to sit back and reflect, right? To sit us down and think about the trajectory of our movement and how we need to be intentional about being intersectional about moving this work forward, right? The statement that Maya Angelou said, and I wrote it down, but for real, it's none of us are free until we're all free, right? And understanding that is that I work in an agency that works to end mass incarceration and address the injustices of those who are undocumented that's coming onto the soil and to fight for reproductive rights of Americans, right? And to stand up for trans folks and LGBTQ folks, right? Where we see fit, right? But this work, all of this social justice work has to come through an intersectional lens. And I think that, and I really believe that in our state that we're really figuring that out, of moving forward on an intersectional lens to really encompass all of us and all of us who are oppressed as we move forward. And I think that this is something that in time we'll get stronger with, but really addressing the injustices that we are experiencing internally inside our own community only builds us as a stronger unit, right? So I think that just for Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, figuring that niche out and trying to get on the same page with our community peers, it really is essential as what moving us forward. I don't know where Tori's at, but I'm excited to hear what Naomi was sharing earlier. Naomi, is your mic working now? I'll tell you, 2021 and this internet, I'll be the first to let you know. Like, if it's not my birds, it's our internet, right? So I mean, anybody see anything in the comment section?
No, but I think that Ms. Career, you were.
I'll go ahead and say something too. I know Naomi was waiting.
Still muted.
Well, am I muted too?
No, I can hear you.
Is she muted still? Okay.
Technology.
Tori was asking us about the questions about the murders that we have been having here locally. Since 2008, it started with my sister, Dee Pearson, who was killed in 2008. 2 weeks before Christmas, actually. It was our first one here. And it really took us getting out there as her friends, her sisters, and pounding the pavement to really be on the police in order to even find out who her killer was, because they was uninterested. They was of no help, anything like that. From Dee Dee's passing in 2008, it seemed like every year since then, we were having 2 girls a year that we were losing. As an advocate, I'm already working in support groups with these girls. These girls are girls I grew up with. These are girls who I've seen grow up themselves throughout the city. Girls I know that really were just doing what they had to do in order to make it each day. And for me, the fight started with really trying to find tangible resources here in the community. What resources are out there? I hear about this organization, that organization, but those organizations don't have people that look like me in those organizations. So when you expect that these same girls to go to those people for help, how are they to ask for help if they don't know the help? In 2019, one of my direct clients, she literally was raped 2 weeks before coming to my office. I fought hard to try to find her resources for housing when I knew agency had money to house this young lady. If this young lady was housed, this lady would not have been murdered from the same people that raped her. And we are still to this day fighting to get them charged for her murder. It is continually happening. Our last one here was last September 18th of 2020, which was a good close friend of mine, Ariane Burnett, who we're currently now fighting to try to find the murder of. Basically, to let you know a little history of all that is to say that if there are proper resources in our areas, we can really help these marginalized girls out. We can get them to resources. I have been doing this for over 15 plus years. And then in the work that I've seen that I have done myself, if you provide these resources for these young ladies or these young men, they're able to sustain themselves. But without these resources, they cannot sustain. And that is the problem here. And creating, as of my sister and her memory of Dee Dee and Ariane, in 2020, I formed Trans Empowerment Society so that we as the trans community can start forming our own narrative and our own path of direction. Instead of someone else leading us and tell us what we can have and what we can't have, let's start leading the narrative ourselves.
Korea, my heart goes out to you for all the work that you have poured out into community. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that we really have to pour out. And we lost a dear heart angel of ours here in New Orleans, China Gibson. And the judge happened to end up running for mayor, and the case went cold. Once we hired we came out of pocket, hired a private investigator, and still have yielded no results. And when we're talking about resources, we're talking about money that is not attached to HIV or money that is not attached to another entity. Because when we're talking about housing, that's about holistic health. When we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about holistic healthcare. Yeah. And then it should not be, I have to have HIV to get housing. Especially if we have to talk about statistics and data, if the data is a clear vision that most trans women are living in poverty, that lets you know we need assistance with housing, we need assistance with higher education, and we need assistance with finding ways to maneuver. So that's where I come in, and where I really try to what you have done, that's what we're doing. Yeah. I've created Team Nola, and it's us taking the power. It's us gathering funding. We're going to work closely together with the House of Tulip, which is the newest housing development here in New Orleans that is trans-led, trans-geared, and trans-focused, trans and gender non-conforming focus for individuals that are experiencing homelessness, either housing disparity, should I say. Because sometimes you don't be homeless, you just ain't got no address. Now, let's be clear here. Homeless and not having an address is something totally different. I can live with my girlfriend all I want, but it's not my address.
Right. Very true.
Hi, folks. Want my own address. I want my own mailing address for me to have my own. It builds up morale. It builds up character, and all of those things is what is needed in our community.
Hi, y'all. Can you hear me?
Empowering and building folk, not tearing them down and dehumanizing them.
Right.
Hello, folks. I'm so sorry that we lost Tori. Cannot get her back, but I think restreaming some issues. Carrying on the cover without us, which we know when you've done also. I just want to close out by asking y'all if any other tips that you would give to advocates, the folks who are just starting out in the work, who are out there, who are watching, the world that we're living in, this moment that we're experiencing. Is there anything else that you want to add for folks as they go out into the world? Korea, is there anything you wanna add for babies?
I would just say, truly be passionate about the work that you're doing for trans and Gen Z folk. It is not a game. This is our life, and truly, truly, truly be passionate about this work.
Thanks, Korea.
For me, beautiful. I would like to say, don't be discouraged. There will be some hard times. You will come across a lot of roadblocks. Sometimes the people that you think going to be in your corner, unfortunately, are not going to be there. But do not be discouraged. Do not be dismayed. What is instilled in you is power. And that power will come out one way or another. Sometimes a diamond is not shined unless there's pressure. So don't take the pressure of society. Don't take the pressure of the nonprofit circular. Don't take none of the pressure and make it discourage you from getting the job done that you want to get done for you and your community. Keep on being the change that you want to see.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody else got any advice for the babies as they go out in the world?
I say, remember to do it for everyone else. It's never about you. It's never going to be for you, even if you benefit for it. It's for the people that are coming after you. And remembering that, and remembering why you started to do the work that you are doing. Do it with an intention always. And remembering that intent versus impact, and being able to collaborate and take constructive criticism and feedback. And don't be afraid to reach out to somebody that you've never worked with before, because forging those new relationships can create something extremely beautiful and meaningful and productive.
Thanks, Gio. Final words?
I guess I would throw it in. It would be nothing different than what my co-panelists have said. I just want folks who are coming into this work, especially if you are impact driven, to really take in consideration self-care and never burn out. Take time for yourself, because you are important to this movement, right? And without you, we could no longer do this movement. And a lot of our ancestors who gained their wings or transition did it through this work, right? And we are, as trans elders, myself just speaking about me, not calling anyone else age out, me as a trans elder is ready to, pass the baton. And I want to make sure that you are in a good shape to actually do this work for our community over the next few years. So stay determined and make sure you keep self-care at the forefront.
I guess everybody's somebody's elder, right?
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you all again so much for joining us for this conversation today. I hope that the folks who are watching took so much from your experience and from all that you had to share. We really feel so incredibly blessed to have you with us today and to have you in this work. It is a tough time to be out there doing this work right now, and having so many strong, successful, thriving folks to put in front of our community today really feels like a beautiful accomplishment. So thank you all so much for that. The rest of our summit, folks, for folks who are watching, is going to be held on Zoom. So fingers crossed that Zoom is in a good space today and a good headspace for what we're going to try and accomplish. You can register for the rest of our conference by following the link that you see below at hrc.im/TJI Summit. We're also going to be on Slack all day long, having conversations, continuing conversations, trying to make some connections between folks. So come and join us for those conversations as well. We got a long list of panels happening today. First up, we're going to have a conversation about the epidemic of fatal violence and how to end it. That's first up, coming to you on Zoom. We're also going to have some conversations later on today about economic empowerment to close out the day. We've got a whole list of panels in between. It's going to be a really long but really beautiful Zoom day. And so I hope you all will come and join us. A big thank you again to all of our panelists and everybody who pitched in to make this successful today. And we'll see you all over on Zoom at the hour. Thank you all.
Thank you.